So hello and welcome to Mr. Wizard's Workshop, episode 35. So this week's episode is productivity principles and number 9. So in last week's episode, I discussed the 8th of a group of core principles for personal productivity. These are the mindsets, beliefs, paradigms, patterns, and mental models, which can be the foundation to build, I believe, all of your productivity techniques, systems, and practices on. Got 3 more to go, but these 12 represent the big picture framework, core principles. So last week's principle number 8 was your future can either be an extension of your past or something new that you can create. So for many people, their future will just be a repetition or extension of their past. This quote from Tony Robbins pretty much sums it up. The past does not equal your future unless you live there. So this week, we're drilling down into productivity principle number 9, which is choose, don't decide. So what's the difference between choosing and deciding? Is this a distinction without a real difference? It's subtle, but there is a distinction. There's a good thought here, which is understand that decide has the root word cide, which means killing or destruction. So, for example, homicide, suicide, genocide, fratricide, patricide, etc. So decide kind of mentally implies cutting off or killing possibilities, whereas choose implies having multiple options and intentionally selecting the one that best serves you. The people I know who are more or most negative and pessimistic often use the words, I have to decide, I've got to decide on what I want to do, I'm having a hard time deciding. The implication or paradigm is that they only have a limited amount of options and they have to decide which one to take. However, the people I know who tend to be more successful, more optimistic and positive in their lives often use phrases like, I get to choose what I'm going to do, or I need to choose the best path forward for myself. So in some areas of our lives, we're actually overwhelmed with choice. For example, junk food, the internet, advertising in general, trash emails, streaming videos, etc., etc. But in the areas of our lives that matter the most, personal health, finances, our business or career, relationships, there's not really as much choice, or we may not be as aware of all the options and have enough choice or not feel like we have enough choice. So we have to develop the ability to create more choice. We have to develop the paradigm. This is the mindset shift. I am in control. I am doing the choosing in my life. Here's a great quote from Stephen Covey that I really like. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. So in that space lies our freedom and our power to choose our response. So in our response lies our growth and our happiness. A couple of little tips to help you with this is try to simplify your daily options so that you can save your brain power and willpower for more important choice. That's one reason why I put so much emphasis on time blocking and planning out my daily work in detail every day. So I do free up brain power and willpower. And when you're considering options, focus on the good arising from the potential choices. Focus much more on the gain rather than on averting any loss. So let's do the quick recap. Principle number 9 is choose, don't decide. And I've gathered up a couple of, I think, really meaningful quotes around it. The first one's from Viktor Frankl, concentration camp survivor who wrote The Meaning of Life and several other excellent books. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstance, to choose one's own way. The great thing about life, the most magnificent thing about being these sentient human beings is that we have been given the power of choice. The strongest principle of growth lies in human choice. And last but not least, always good to get a quote from Oprah. Understand that the right to choose your own path is a sacred privilege. Use it. Dwell in the possibilities. So the action item for this week, identify an aspect of your life that you're not completely satisfied with right now. It can be in the domain of work, health, family, spirituality, community. Then ask yourself, why am I unhappy or unsatisfied with the situation? Then the next question to ask yourself is, where do I want to be instead? And then third, think about and identify what is one change that I can make right now and how I'm behaving that will help me get closer to the place that I've identified in number 2. So I have a question for you. Are you an entrepreneur who's highly motivated to improve your productivity, but you still struggle with procrastination and regularly find yourself neglecting your highest priority tasks. So schedule a free 30-minute quick start to time blocking working session with me, and I'll show you how to beat procrastination and get your shit done. The link is theaccountabilitywizard.com/scheduling. I'll put the link in the description of the recording for this video. I'm a master of time blocking, and I can help you master it also. I have a limited number of time blocks available in my calendar, so grab a slot while you can, and I'll now open up the floor for questions and discussion. Hi, Morris. Hi, Gina. How you guys doing?
Hello.
Hey, guys.
So we get to ask our questions out loud?
Yeah.
Well, I have a comment. Yesterday's talk with Patricia Levy, she talked a lot about choices that eventually had a very successful academic career. She was going up for full professor, and she left it all behind to pursue her true life's love of writing. So she said, well, I had a choice, and the choice was that I could take 3 years out of my life, go up for full professor, go on sabbatical, come back, or I can take the bull by the horns and start my writing career now. And she's never looked back. And for those who don't know, becoming full professor is the pinnacle of your academic career. Most people thought she was crazy, but she does not regret it at all. So take advantage of the choices you have.
Yeah, and that's a pretty good summary of kind of the point I'm trying to make. And be aware that you do have choices, often more choices than even you might think or would consider at first blush. Morris, any thoughts, comments, discussion?
This is a difficult topic for me, right? This is the type of topic where I can absorb the information, but I don't have much of a comment on it because I don't know. It's one of these things where people who need it don't see it.
And for people who already understand it, it seems almost obvious. Why are we even dedicating an episode to this particular topic?
No. That's not what I meant. But not in that sense at all.
Right.
It is hugely important, but more like in those moments where I forget that I have a choice, the last thing I'm going to think of is that I have a choice, right? So that's why episodes like this are so important. That's why having a coach like you is so important. That's why, not living inside your own head or inside your own bubble is important. That's my comment on it.
Very good. As I was kind of mentioning in the first part of the video, or explaining again why I'm going through these core 12 productivity principles that are kind of the framework for all the more detail specific processes, techniques, and productivity improvement hacks that I put in place and that I recommend and work with my coaching clients on, is the framework or mindset. That sometimes you can get bogged down in the details, but there are things that if you just shift your thinking on it and you're aware of it, or it's at least in the back of your mind, you've been exposed to it, then it makes applying those techniques and practices a lot easier, and it gives you motivation. And Morris, I see you have your hand up, so go ahead.
Yes, because right as I spoke out loud, I realized what's holding me back, and that is choice is scary. There are many areas where I know I have a choice. I am really scared of changing my plan or changing my mind. Right? I know I have a choice, but going down this other path or making a different decision is very scary. Right. So I feel like I assume I'm not the only one who has this. So I would say, right, the next step is, how do you make a choice that scares the
crap out of you?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I didn't spend a whole lot. I threw out a couple of tips. I think the one tip that I did share in this video that could partially apply to that or help with that is, when you're considering options, and I could say especially if the option feels scary, feels potentially very good, but also feels really scary, is focus on the positive. All right, so if I did, what's the potential or likely beneficial outcome if I take this option, and spend a lot less time and energy thinking about what's the bad shit that might happen if I take this up?
That's the context I always see it in, is, and maybe Gina, you have experience with this as well, where when I know I have choices, it's like as a baseline, as soon as we have choices, it almost sounds like we have to take the other choice. Right? It's like, but what's so bad about choosing to leave everything the same? I feel like that has a very bad rap attached to it. It's like, it's in a negative context. If a person who has choices chooses to keep everything the same, it's like, well, you're just lying to yourself, right? Like you're scared, like all that stuff. But what if keeping everything the same is indeed the best, although I have choices? You see what I'm saying? Like,
yes. Well, and not making a change is a choice. So that's part of the exercise was for a particular thing that you're not happy or satisfied with, whether it's health or something in your business or relationships, whatever. But, if everything is copacetic, at a given point in time,
yeah.
then it's great that you have other options. And if shit happens in the future, something changes, oh, okay, I do have options. But there's nothing that says you have to be constantly making new choices if the choices you've made in the direction you're going is all working fine.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to add one thing based upon all of the people that I interviewed over the last 2 months is that everybody, it seems, I can't think of an exception, got their feet wet first.
Right.
Everybody, either they volunteered or they learned a little something or they took a little side job. And so they got their feet wet. And after getting their feet wet, they were more empowered to take these choices.
Right.
And so almost everybody that I interviewed made a huge career change. And, with Patricia, she did more than have her feet wet. She was actively involved in the publishing industry. She had contacts throughout the entire publishing industry before she decided to make the jump. Mm-hmm. But some people, no, they just, had like these little side jobs. So if you have these choices, and I also suggested that during the Q&A talk, is try it out.
Right.
If you have an opportunity, try it out. And then I think that you get more empowered to make the choice if it works out. If it doesn't work out, then you're no worse off than you are now.
Well, and taking that smaller bite is one of the options. So it's also a choice. I've got a choice between diving into the deep end immediately, whether it's quitting your day job or, whatever that is, or continuing with, like, to go back to my example, continuing with my day job, but starting to develop a little side business or do volunteer work or do something that lets me get my feet wet. And then that gives me more information and opens up potentially other options.
That's perfect. That it's like so simple but so effective. Yeah, exactly. Like if you want to start a new business or do something completely else, get one client, right? Like just get one client, try it out, and that's gonna answer a lot of the questions, right? Like you'll know very quickly, is that the path for me or not? So yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the kind of general principle is, a choice doesn't have to be necessarily a earth-shattering choice, right?
Yeah.
Not every choice has to be some huge dramatic thing. The option, there's always a menu of options, and it could well be that the better option for someone is to take that smaller bite rather than that huge jump or leap into the unknown.
Steven, that's so good, because if I think I only have like earth-shattering choices, ironically, I believe I don't have choices, right? Like the realization that you can take a small bite, try something out, take a small step, right? That's what it means to have choices. It means to be able to do something that makes you feel safe and comfortable, and not something that
freaks you out.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for watching this video recording from my live weekly workshop. Every Sunday, I feature instantly actionable steps you can take to overcome procrastination, increase your productivity, and get your shit done. Followed up by Q&A and discussion with the live participants. I really hope you found this video useful and you feel like watching it was time well spent. Please post any questions or comments you have. I always answer posts. I'd appreciate it very much if you would like this video and subscribe to my channel. And if you know anyone that would enjoy and benefit from this particular episode, please send them the link. Stay productive, my friends.